Candidates, let's run down the format very quickly. We'll have 6 rounds. 2 will be moderated questions from myself to start and to close. 4 rounds in between will be allotted to you. You will each have 2 chances to question each other. Answers to each question will be 2 minutes. Your opponent will then have 1 minute to respond or rebut. And finally, you will have 30 seconds at the end to make any final points. Please keep your eyes on the timekeeper here at the front. He will signal when there's 15 seconds to go with a yellow light, and the red light will signal the end of your time. To begin, we're going to begin with opening statements of 2 minutes each, and the honor of opening up goes to Sheriff James.
Good evening. Thank you, Cliff. It's my honor to be here tonight. I thank you all for coming out. It's truly been my honor in my life to serve as your sheriff for the past 8 years. Being born and raised in Frederick County, I'll call Lewistown my home. I have a wife of 25 years, Sherry Hendrickson Jenkins, who's here tonight. My son attends Mount St. Mary's in the ROTC program. I've got a daughter, Megan, who's a junior at Catoctin High School. I have 25 years of real actual law enforcement experience here in Frederick County with the Frederick County Sheriff's Office, also serving 3 former sheriffs. The fact that I've been sheriff for 8 years, I think tonight will convince you that I can refute any argument about not having the experience or the training or education to effectively lead what I believe is the best agency in the region. I excelled at criminal investigations. I did pretty well, I think, actually. Handled high-profile crimes during my career, specializing in child abuse, sex crimes, homicide, death investigations. I was an agency instructor, trainer, and hostage negotiator for many, many years. Prior to law enforcement, I spent 17 years in the communications satellite industry. I have attended scores of specialized trainings throughout my career relative to different roles in law enforcement. As sheriff, I continue to attend executive level trainings, having successfully graduated in 2007 from the National Sheriff's Leadership Institute. You know, my executive leadership role as sheriff has been to steer, lead, and manage a full-service sheriff's office with over 400 deputies, correctional officers, and support staff, including management and oversight of a budget that exceeds $44 million. Spending my life here in Frederick County, you know, my personal life, my involvements, I am so interwoven into this county, it's almost like an unbreakable tether. I think we've achieved a lot during my tenure, and I hope we go over those and cover those tonight. As sheriff, I'm honored to be seated on 2 major national committees, Homeland Security Committee of the National Sheriffs, also the Immigration and Border Security Committee. I've achieved a lot, but I think that my most important achievement is being accessible to you and being there for you, the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Biddle, you have, we'll hold on to the applause, guys. We're going to do the same thing. Okay, we're going to get through the format. Then we'll open. Mr. Biddle, 2 minutes for your opening statement.
First, thank you very much to the Frederick News Post and Frederick Community College for hosting this important event. And most of all, I want to thank all of you for attending. This will be a historic election in Frederick County. It will give us our first county executive and first council. It will be a pivotal time for our community. The only constant we can count on in this world is that things will change, and Frederick County is changing, not only in its form of government, but in the diversity of its people, businesses, and job opportunity. As we go through these changes, we will need a sheriff with knowledge, skills, and abilities gained through education, training, and experience to meet the challenges that accompany our community's change. Our community is in the midst of a heroin epidemic and just came off a year, 2013, that produced an unprecedented 23% increase in crime in the area of the county that the Sheriff's Office is responsible for. While crime went down in the counties surrounding us, and as we saw a 7% decrease in crime in the city of Frederick. Our Sheriff's Office is under investigation by the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, and the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that our Sheriff's Office has been guilty of racial profiling. The good news is that we have a great community with a wealth of resources to draw on in addressing current and future problems. We have dedicated personnel in our Sheriff's Office who yearn for the kind of leadership that will help them achieve all they can, or as the Army says, help them be all they can be. I would like to bring my experience, education, and training to bear in helping the dedicated sheriff's personnel provide the level of service and protection our community so richly deserves.
Thank you very much. You give a round of applause now. Great. Have it out of your system? Okay, great. I'm going to ask for some. silence from now on, okay? And then at the end, you'll get to give another round. All right. Moving on, we are going to ask one question from us here at the FMP. And because you got to go first, Sheriff, we're going to let Mr. Bickle take this one first and then go to you. Remember, you have 2 minutes to answer. That will give you a minute to respond and 30 seconds to round up. What's the greatest challenge law enforcement faces over the next 4 years, and how would you lead Frederick County Sheriff's Office to address it?
The greatest challenge we have currently is the heroin epidemic that we're experiencing and the 23% increase in crime. That we've experienced in the first quarter of this year more heroin overdose deaths than Montgomery County or Prince George's County. That as I start off as sheriff, my priority is going to be to address the heroin and 23% increase in crime as a major priority. That I intend to do so by putting together a forum that's going to involve all stakeholders in the community, bring everybody to the table. That everybody has a vested interest in turning around the heroin epidemic and the crime problem. That we need the Board of Education, we need the prosecutor's office, we need all the police agencies, we need the health department, and we need everybody to work together to create a synergy in order to address these issues. And one of the things that I'll bring to it is a process that's used in major police departments, a management tool, ComStat process. And essentially, you bring all the players together, and then you have weekly meetings to address where you are on the issues, what progress you're being made, holding people accountable, and moving forward in achieving results. That's going to be my priority. Training is going to be a priority. We've seen some of the problems we've had in the sheriff's office as a result of the reduction in training that included the loss of accreditation for the jail, and some of the incidents, high-profile incidents we've seen that have taken place that ought not have taken place. That training is going to be a priority. We have good sheriff's office personnel that are really looking for some leadership and support that are going to provide them the training, the tools necessary for them to achieve all they can.
Sheriff Jenkins, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. We have addressed the heroin epidemic. I don't know where Mr. Bickle's been, but we are doing everything and have been more than any other agency in Frederick County to fight the problem. We have teamed up with Frederick County Public Schools, with the Health Department, with all the public safety entities. We've been out doing public meetings now for 16 months, and folks, frankly, no one attends. No one wants to hear the message, but we're out there doing it. We're out there on the road taking our message out. The Frederick County Sheriff's Office is attacking the heroin problem from 3 fronts. We do interdiction operations routinely. We also do community complaint-based investigations, also large-scale trafficking investigations. It's a national epidemic. It's not isolated to Frederick County. Also, I'd point out there was not a 23% increase in crime in Frederick County. The increase was 14%, yet we in Frederick County are at half the national average of crimes per 1,000 people. So, don't listen to all the numbers. The facts are we're doing good things in the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. We are attacking these problems, and we are effective.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bickle, you have 30 seconds to sum.
With regard to the doing everything we can, that it seems to me that everything we can isn't quite enough. The public meetings that have been organized, I've been to many of these public meetings around the country when it comes to drugs and other issues. And like the sheriff points out, that you tend to have them sparsely attended, often by folks that really don't need to be there because they have already taken an interest. That these meetings tend to lay the blame on the parents and the addicted individual, and not have any substantive.
Okay, it's time. I'm sorry, I have to cut you off at the red light. Now it's my turn to get out of the way. We're going to give you the opportunity to ask each other questions. You have 30 seconds to ask your question, and Sheriff Jenkins, you will get to take the first question for Mr. Bickle. You will get 1 minute to 2 minutes to respond.
I asked him the first
You
one?
ask him the first
Okay,
question.
very good.
That's right.
Okay.
You get to kick us off here.
Okay, very good.
Then Mr. Bickle, you get 2 minutes to respond. Mr. Jenkins, you get 1 minute, and then 30 seconds for Mr. Bickle to sum up.
Mr. Bickle, you've criticized the 287 Immigration Enforcement Program and our partnership with ICE in Frederick County. You've stated that it's bad for this county and divisive for this community. You certainly understand the issue of illegal immigration that has a huge impact on crime, public safety, national security, criminal gang activity, human trafficking, and public health, along with the social problems and the economic impact to taxpayers. If you really believe it's that bad a program and intend to terminate the partnership, what will you do to protect the citizens of Frederick County from the surge of gangs, illegal aliens, increase in illegal drugs, human trafficking that severely impact our surrounding counties?
Okay, the 287G program, as it's intended, is a good program. The idea behind the 287G program is to identify and deport those that have been involved in serious criminal activity, drug dealing, gang membership, and violent crimes. The 287G program, that way it's been applied in Frederick County, has actually caused problems rather than solved problems. And the whole idea, it seems, those that are in favor of the 287G program is to reduce the number of illegal aliens in the county. And there's no evidence that that's taken place. A lot of money is being spent, and we're not getting any return on our investment. That one example of some of the problems, because the immigration problem is a national problem that has to be dealt with at the national level. And until that's done, efforts with 287G at the local level like this just aren't going to work out. That we had an incident a couple years ago where there was a homicide of a lady in Frederick City. And the individual that had committed that homicide was here illegally, but they had once been deported already, and they came back. And that's one of the problems that's inherent in what's taking place now in Frederick County with 287G. We're spending a lot of money to send people back to their country of origin, only for them to turn around and come back. I recall some years ago when the program first started, the young fellow was being interviewed and gave his name, and they asked whether he was concerned that he would be deported. And he said no, he wasn't concerned at all because it was nearing Christmas, and if he got deported, he could go back and see his family, and then he would come back. So, and as far as the immigrant population being responsible for the crime, the 23% increase in crime that's taken place in the unincorporated portions of the county is where you have the smaller number of immigrants, not a very large immigrant population at all, while the larger immigrant population is in the city where there's a 7% reduction in crime.
Thank you very much. Sure. 1 minute.
Mr. Bickle, you made my point. There is a reduction in crime in areas that were heavily populated by criminal aliens. Our program in Frederick County is very effective. It's been touted by ICE as a model program across the country. We have removed from this county 1,300 people that were in this country illegally that have committed crimes in Frederick County. More than 70 transnational criminal gang members are gone from this county. It is an effective program. Yes, the flaws are at the border, folks. The flaws are not with the program in Frederick County. Yes, your federal dollars are wasted, but they're not wasted in Frederick County. I believe that Frederick County is a safer county because of it.
Now, Mr. Bickle, 30 seconds to respond.
Yes, I don't think there's any evidence to support that. That the surrounding communities that have large immigrant populations, their crime rates actually went down. Whereas, once again, in Frederick County, we're taking our eye off of the problem, or the sheriff is taking his eye off the problem in the county, and that's heroin and rising crime, some of the crime associated with heroin addiction. And that's where we need to focus our attention. We need to focus our attention on the things that are affecting the residents of Frederick County and achieve some results there.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bickle, it's now your turn to ask Sheriff Jenkins a question. You have 30 seconds.
Okay. Your tenure as sheriff has been highlighted by a heroin epidemic that has produced a record number of overdose deaths and widespread drug dependency, a 23% increase in serious crime for the year of 2013. You've been criticized for handling high-profile incidents, by the way you've handled high-profile incidents by the Frederick County Post, Washington Post, Baltimore Sun, and even the New York Times, as well as regional TV news. Our county is one of 28 counties out of over 3,000 counties in this country to be labeled a high-intensity drug trafficking area by the Office of National Drug Control Policy. The Sheriff's Office is currently under investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the
Okay,
Sheriff's
if you could
Office...
sum up, please.
What education, training, and experience will you bring to bear to fix these problems?
First of all, these problems aren't related to education, training, and experience. The Frederick County Sheriff's Office is law enforcement. We are out there on the streets. We are doing what we do. We fight the drug problems. We enforce the drug laws. We can arrest our way through some of these problems. The heroin epidemic, absolutely. Is that Frederick County's problem alone? No, absolutely it's not. It's a national problem. It's a regional problem. Let me go back a minute and say some of the high-profile cases, you know what? We train, we educate, but regardless of how well we train and how much experience we have and how many times we respond to incidents, sometimes they don't have good outcomes. That's the nature of the world we live in, folks. Things don't always go the way you train them. You train your people to deal with them. Some very unfortunate incidents have occurred over the past couple of years. I don't blame my deputies for those incidents. Again, let me go back to his previous question. Heroin does not start in Baltimore, folks. Heroin is surging across our borders at alarming rates. It's measured in tonnage. That heroin comes into Frederick County. The 23% increase in crime that he speaks of, that's incorrect. That's false. That's a lie. It's a 14% increase driven by heroin, primarily in thefts, burglaries, and property crimes. We know that through our intelligence, through our interviews, through all our investigations, through our crime analysis. So there's no failure on the part of the Frederick County Sheriff's Office.
Thanks, Mr. Pickle. Let's hold on to it, guys, please. Let's hold it. Thank you. Mr. Pickle, 1 minute.
You talk about the tactics, poor tactics, and poor training in those tactics and poor supervision. That's what produces poor outcomes. And aren't you responsible for the actions of your personnel and the results of the Sheriff's Office, whether they be positive or negative? That we talk about the heroin problem and the heroin coming in to the county and the heroin driving the crime problem. To some extent, the heroin drives the crime problem. There are areas of where the heroin addiction and intersect. But just as you pointed out, the whole country, the whole region is experiencing a heroin problem. The city of Frederick is experiencing a heroin problem. Yet the city of Frederick had a reduction in crime while the county, the area that you're responsible for, had a significant increase in crime.
30 seconds.
Again, some of what he says is true, absolutely. But again, you can't associate it with the failure to train. Our people are well trained. I have not cut training. I've simply cut the cost of training. We now train more than we ever have. The number of hours that we train in law enforcement and corrections exceeds state standards. We increased our specialized training for all our law enforcement personnel, also correctional personnel. There's no failure to train, folks. The failure really is in society.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jenkins, it's your turn to ask Mr. Bickle a question.
Okay. Mr. Bickle, you've stated that you will do away with lawsuits. I think everyone knows that lawsuits are more prevalent than ever in our society, and more lawsuits than ever are filed against law enforcement agencies across the country. How exactly do you propose to do away with lawsuits or eliminate the filing of lawsuits against this agency? And please, come up with more specifics than additional training, education, or accreditation.
Okay. First of all, you are correct in that a certain number of lawsuits are going to be inevitable. That you can't run away from. But we've seen examples of things that just should not have happened in Frederick County that have produced lawsuits. A rash of suicides at the jail that should not have happened. Some high-profile incidents like the death of Ethan Saylor that should not have happened. The raid that took place in Mount Airy where a young man was shot and killed that should not have happened. And all of these things actually do go to training and supervision and leadership. And it's my understanding that you have in fact cut training. And how do you cut the cost of training without cutting training itself? And as far as meeting the minimum standard in the state of Maryland, the minimum standard is so low that it'd be terrible not to meet it. The minimum standard is 18 hours of in-service training per year. When I was second in command of the sheriff's office under a previous sheriff, we increased that training to 40 hours. And that was just the basic in-service training, and then the specialized training that deputies got in addition to that training like I'm sure you still send some deputies to.
Again, we have not cut training. I've cut the cost of training. Let me give you an example. Why should I send 2 deputies to crash reconstruction school in Las Vegas when I can send them 30 miles away to Sykesville? That's an example of the decisions I've made in terms of cost cutting. In terms of the specialized training, I approved anywhere between 230 and 260 training requests every year for specialized training. Thousands of hours of training that equates to, and again, the only time that I deny training, any training that is reasonable, practical, and of good use to the agency is approved. The only time I deny that training is if it affects minimum staffing in our operations, which isn't many times. I think 7 times this year I've denied training, maybe 5 last year.
Thanks, sir. 30-second response.
Well, that begs the question then, after the incident when Ethan Saylor was killed, that twice you were offered the opportunity to provide training on how to deal with the special needs population and twice turned it down. Then some professors from Mount St. Mary's approached you and you finally accepted and trained the deputies. But meanwhile, you failed to train the correctional officers, and they deal with the special needs population on a daily basis. And you haven't participated in the state effort to improve training in that area.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mickle, it's your opportunity to question Sheriff Jenkins.
Okay. Why is it that the Frederick City Police Department received federal funding to hire 7 new police officers, saving local tax dollars, even though they had a 7% increase in serious crime and 7% reduction in serious crime in 2013? While you've been requesting deputies in your budget for the sheriff's office and gotten no federal assistance, you had considerably more justification with a countywide heroin epidemic, a 23% increase in serious crime, and designation as a high-intensity drug trafficking area, but have not gotten federal funding to hire new deputies. Funding that could have saved
sum up, please.
local tax dollars.
2 minutes response.
The answer is very simple. I don't believe in placing the burden of hiring now using federal money and laying that burden on the taxpayers down the line. We can afford to hire deputy sheriffs in Frederick County, and we can afford to pay for those deputy sheriffs. I think fundamentally it's wrong to rely on federal grants for reoccurring costs like that. I think grants, when they're practical and useful, and you really have a need for something in particular, I think they're great. The one-time expenditures, the thing you have to really watch with grant funding, it's very restrictive, it ties your hands, and you're very limited to what you can do with that manpower or the operational equipment that you purchase with it. I've got a premise that listen, folks, why should a dairy farmer in Iowa pay for a deputy sheriff in Frederick County? It doesn't quite make sense to me. These grants, these federal grants have become the heroin of big government bureaucrats. They're crippling our country, they're crippling the government. We become reliant on them, and very frankly, I am just not going to lay that burden on the Frederick County taxpayers as long as we can afford to fund our own positions as far as law enforcement operations.
Thank you very much. 1 minute.
Okay, well, the sheriff is fundamentally wrong on a lot of this with regard to the grants. That, first of all, he's turned down a $500,000 earmark that former Congressman Roscoe Bartlett got the sheriff's office, that we haven't gotten a justice assistance grant in years. That the hiring grants, I just spent 17 years working in the Justice Department, and much of what I did revolved around grant making, monitoring grants, and working with the law enforcement community. that the grants are not that difficult to manage, to maintain, and these are your tax dollars. That the sheriff's position with regard to not wanting to be dependent on grants is one thing, but these are your tax dollars that go to Washington, and we should be getting $5 to $10 million a year back from Washington. Your tax dollars that are being spent in Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Baltimore. We need to use our money here in Frederick.
Thank you, Sheriff Jenkins. 30 seconds.
Well, again, we do in fact receive certain grants. We have been for years. Folks, the well is running dry. He says I'm leaving meat on the bone. There is no meat on the bone. We've gone from a high back in 2003 from over $2 million a year under the COPS grant program to now everything, including the BJAG grants, which you do get, Mr. Pickle. Don't know where you get your information, but you're wrong. But those grants now have gone to an all-time low. This year is projected to be $151,000, including all the grants we participate in. So, folks, ladies and gentlemen, the well is dry. It's just not out there.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of our round in which you both question each other. I have one more question to wrap up, and then we'll have our closing statements of 2 minutes. Sheriff Jenkins, you get to go first. Take this question first. And you get, Ms. Bill, you have 2 minutes to answer. With a budget of $43 million, I believe that's correct, how would you use those dollars most wisely to maintain adequate law enforcement in the county? So I believe you get to go first with 2 minutes. Sorry, yes, because you were...
I believe those funds are used very wisely. Out of that $43 million, $24 million of that money is currently allocated to law enforcement. It keeps deputy sheriffs on the street. It pays for operational expenses. We currently have a sworn personnel, 172 deputy sheriffs, from my chief deputy to the newest recruit. We deploy our people very effectively. We have a lot of personnel on the street. We look at deployment matrices to assign our people to work certain areas, hotspot areas. I do believe, and one of the things I've really been the most proud of is how we've used our budget money. I don't think we misspend. I don't think we over budget. I think I've got an obligation to you. When I set my budget every year, and budgets are projected expenditures, okay? And I think it's my responsibility and my duty to you, the taxpayer, to spend that money as wisely as I can. And if I see a way to save $1 and every expenditure goes across my desk, I think that's a wise way to do business. Again, when you look at our budget, roughly 70% of that budget is in salaries and fringes. I do every single thing I can in this county to save your tax dollars. So I don't think there's a need to change the way we operate. I think we are very effective with it. I've got a great fiscal services director. We work well with the county budget office. As a matter of fact, I can tell you a couple of years ago, I walked into the county manager's office and was basically told, Sheriff, you're not making us look bad. You're saving money across town, you're making the rest of the county government look bad. So I wouldn't change a thing in the way I'm doing business.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bickle, you have a minute to respond.
Okay, first of all, you're not going to make progress without change. Change is going to be required to make progress. One of the first things I would do would be a staffing analysis. The sheriff's office is currently top-heavy. That you have too many chiefs and not enough worker bees. That the sheriff is asking for more personnel. I think that if you would do your staffing analysis, you'd find that some of that can be utilized much better. Part of that money I would take and invest in technology and work smarter. That one of the things that we can do is reporting. You should be able to make a report. Young people want to make a report over a cell phone, or they want to make a report over a laptop computer. Not have a deputy come out, wait 45 minutes to an hour maybe for a deputy to come, because it's a big county, it takes a long time to get there. Get a written report, have to go down to the sheriff's office, pay $5 or whatever it is to get a written report, to give to their insurance company. All of that can be taken care of over a cell phone. There are departments around the country that do that sort of thing. Frederick County is way behind when it comes to the use of technology.
Thank you. Sharon.
Again, not true. We have the most up-to-date public safety technology on the streets, both in law enforcement and corrections and detention. Folks, when a crime's committed, when you're a victim of a crime, you want to talk in the cell phone, or do you want a deputy sheriff? Do you want a black and white at your door? I believe that the people of Frederick County still want the presence of a deputy sheriff to report a crime. Yes, we do take telephone reports if it's appropriate. Again, I believe the premise of the police on the street is to be present, to be visible, and to be there for you.
Thank you very much. That wraps up our question and answer round. Hold on. All right. Save it up. We've got more to go. Going in reverse order from our opening statements, Carl Biddle, you get to go first, followed by Sheriff Jenkins.
Thank you. This evening you've already heard and are going to hear again from the county executive candidates talk about the economic development, the need to bring new business to Frederick County while supporting those businesses we currently have. You will hear about how that will provide capital in order to improve services and keep our schools among the very best in the nation. You will hear about creating a business-friendly environment. But unless there is a change in the leadership of our Sheriff's Office, that environment will continue to be poisoned, making it impossible to achieve the goals our new county executive and council would like. Let's take a moment to look at the current environment. The current environment includes a heroin epidemic, 23% increase in serious crime for the year 2013, criticism of our sheriff's handling of several high-profile incidents by the Frederick News Post, the Washington Post, Baltimore Sun, and even the New York Times, as well as the regional TV news stations. Our county is one of 28 out of over 3,000 counties in the U.S. to be labeled a high-intensity drug trafficking area by the Office of National Drug Control Policy. The Sheriff's Office is currently under investigation by the Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that the Sheriff's Office was guilty of racial profiling. This is not the environment in which people generally want to locate a business or move their family into. I have a unique background made up of over 40 years of experience at the municipal, federal, county, and in the private sector. My education includes master's degrees from American University and Johns Hopkins University, a plethora of related training that is particularly well suited to lead our Sheriff's Office in a new direction, one that will resort in trust, confidence, and pride in the office of Sheriff. We've reached a tipping point in our Sheriff's Office. We can either continue down the current path or with new leadership, change course, and save our county from the kind of future none of us want to see. The choice of who leads our Sheriff's Office will be yours, and I ask for your vote on November 4th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're going to get to applaud at the end, you know. Okay. Sheriff Jenkins, 2 minutes.
When elected in 2006, I was entrusted with your confidence, your citizens here in Frederick County, and I've never lost sight of the trust you placed in me. I made promises and commitments to the citizens that I would be fiscally responsible, and I have been, returning $22 million of taxpayer monies back to the county coffers in 8 years. I was the first elected official to change a mindset with government spending, that I would stand up and fight illegal immigration in Frederick County, and I've done so with one of the most effective 287G programs, partnerships in the nation. I've stood up for Frederick County with other sheriffs across the country by testifying before Congress on the issue. That I would effectively implement programs to be tougher on crime and criminals in Frederick County and have done so with new enforcement strategies and improved technologies. That I would be the people's sheriff and have done so by being accessible to every one of you in this county every single day through my personal life and also all my town hall meetings. You might not agree with my policy or agree with me every day, but I'm there for you. My commitment to support your ownership of firearms, your right to self-protection. I've testified on your behalf to protect your rights on bad gun bills in the state of Maryland. When sworn as sheriff, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the state of Maryland. My fights on illegal immigration and self-protection are for you folks. They're not just for me, they're for you. I'm there to protect your rights as Americans. I really believe that the sheriff, the office of the sheriff, is the last line between government and the American citizen, and when the government fails, and it is failing, that protection, that obligation of protection falls to the sheriff. I do my best to protect you and your rights every single day. I have the experience and can make decisions in real-life situations without reaching for a written reference or looking for public opinion. I back my deputies in the job they do because I believe in them and in the job they do every day. I've lived up to every promise and I've delivered on that promise. I stand on my record, judge me by my record. My opponent is trying to convince you to fire me as your sheriff. Look very closely at the character of my opponent tonight.
if
I
you
love
could,
this country,
sum
this
up,
county.
Michelle.